If you've ever struggled to lose a few pounds, just wait till you see what some animals have to endure as they battle through nature's toughest weight loss programs. We're counting down the top 10 most extreme dieters in the animal kingdom to find the animal that lasts longest without food. Discover that sometimes you can have your cake and eat it too when dieters are taken to the most extreme. Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places and extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual, the most extraordinary, the most extreme. Most humans are happy and healthy eating 3 meals a day. But when we start eating more and exercising less, we get fat. In America alone, an estimated 127 million adults are overweight. And while obesity is bad news for humans, in the natural world, fat is beautiful. Some animals have to pile on the weight as a way of storing energy. That's because, unlike humans, animals can't always eat when they want. As we search for the creatures that suffer from the world's worst hunger tantrums, we'll discover some truly extreme dieters. Our first contender has more hunger tantrums than any other animal. If it doesn't eat every 2 hours, it could starve to death. The hummingbird is number 10 in the countdown because it eats 60 meals a day and yet it never gets fat. All that food fuels the bird's racing metabolism. A hummingbird's heart can beat more than 20 times a second when its wings are beating at more than 2,000 revs per minute. That's why a hummingbird must visit up to 1,000 flowers a day. It drinks almost twice its weight in nectar. That's the equivalent of a man having to eat more than 200,000 calories a day. That's about 77 kilograms of hamburger. Humans have far more trouble burning off extra calories, especially when we love drinking a different kind of sugary water. Americans love their soft drinks. They consume more than 190 liters of carbonated soft drinks per person every year. Just one can contains the equivalent of about 20 teaspoons of sugar. This is nectar for the hummingbirds of human society, the American teenager. A typical teen consumes more than 2 cans of soft drink every day. But unlike hummingbirds, teenagers don't burn off all those extra calories. Let's imagine that a teenager drinks just 1 too many cans of soft drink for his energy requirements. That's 150 calories more than he burns each day. If this trend continued every day for a year, he would have put on 7 kilograms of fat. So perhaps it's not surprising that in the last 20 years, the proportion of overweight American adolescents has doubled. Of course, the hummingbird has no such problems. Its high-performance racing metabolism burns energy almost as fast as it can refuel. That's why the hummingbird is said to be only 2 hours away from starvation. But as our countdown continues, we'll discover that not all animals are like this frantic feeder. In fact, some creatures have found ways of surviving on a diet that's so extreme, they may not eat for years. Most people know that their body has lots of places to store fat, especially if you can't resist having just one more chocolate. So if you've ever dreamed of being able to eat as much as you like and never get fat, then check out our next contender. It's one of the smallest mammals in the world, the shrew. It's almost constantly looking for food because, like the hummingbird, it needs to eat vast amounts just to fuel its incredibly fast metabolism. The shrew is number 9 in the countdown because it can starve to death in only a few hours. One species is so hungry that it has to eat up to 3 times its own weight in food every day. No human can eat like a shrew, but one man is determined to give it his best shot. Meet Eric Badlands Booker. He's a competitive eater. Eric is a 180-kilogram eating machine. He swallowed 49 glazed donuts in 8 minutes and 29.5 hot dogs in only 12 minutes. It may sound like a strange diet, but it's just another day at the office when you're part of the International Federation of Competitive Eating.
Get right on it.
Like any other sport, Eric has to undergo some rigorous training.
It's the sweet science of competitive eating. That's what I always say. You know, there's a method to the madness. Believe it or not, my health has actually gotten better when I became a serious competitive eater. Basically during like the off season, I eat a lot of vegetables, stay away from the fried foods. My cholesterol went from like over 200 to 150. And I think that attributes to, me staying hungry and staying focused.
But not even Eric can compete with the animal that's number 9 in the countdown. After all, if he was like a shrew, he'd be eating 24 hours a day just to stay warm. That's because a shrew is so small it loses heat incredibly fast. It keeps warm by burning up calories with its racing metabolism, which is why the shrew is a small animal with a really big appetite. Our first 2 contenders have been on a real seafood diet. When they see food, they eat it. But dining can be difficult when you're trapped in one of the coldest places on the planet. And what munching maniac became known as the Great Masticator? Our countdown of extreme dieters continues in the Sahara Desert. Enter this land of scorching sand and blistering heat without food or water, and you'd be dead in a day. Living in a land of sand forces our next contender onto an extreme diet. But not eating for a week is no problem when you're a camel. For thousands of years, people have been crossing arid wastelands on the animals known as the ships of the desert. They don't need to refuel because they carry their supplies on their back. It's a portable pantry that's full of fat. A well-fed camel can have up to 36 kilograms of blubber in its hump. The camel is number 8 in the countdown because it can go for 2 weeks without eating, simply by burning all the fat in its hump. To refuel, the camel can't afford to be fussy. Those thick, floppy lips are remarkably tough and can pluck even the prickliest plants. A camel will eat anything, even if it means picking over carcasses or eating fish. Everything that enters the mouth is ground up by powerful molars before heading down to the camel's 3-chambered stomach. And then it comes back up again. The camel regurgitates half-digested food because chewing it twice gives double exposure to digestive enzymes in saliva. Humans also need to chew their food, but early last century, one man took chewing to the extreme. Self-taught nutritionist Horace Fletcher was known as the Great Masticator because he advocated chewing every mouthful 100 times. He believed that chewing maximized nutrient extraction and also inhibited overeating. Fletcher believed that you should spit out any food that couldn't be chewed into a liquid. Since this removes the dietary fiber so necessary for bowel function, perhaps he should have been called the Great Constipator. A dieting dromedary has masticating down to a fine art. It will chew anything it can wrap its lips around, even its owner's turban. It may not seem very appetizing, but it's a banquet compared to some of the diets coming up in the countdown. Our last 2 contenders sometimes bit off more than they could chew, but as our countdown continues, we'll discover that living in the world's largest freezer is tough when there's no groceries in sight. And would you lose weight if you had a glass of heavy cream for breakfast every day? There's one good thing about being pregnant. Since you're eating for 2, you're allowed to gain a little weight. On average, women need to put on about 13 kilograms to provide enough nourishment for their baby. But that's nothing compared to the next contender in our countdown of extreme dieters. A pregnant mom that has to put on at least 180 kilograms. This Weddell seal has spent the last 9 months getting ready for the birth of her baby by gorging herself in the icy waters around Antarctica. The solid pack ice is a safe place to give birth, but she's more than 300 kilometers from her feeding grounds. She needs as much fat as possible because she won't get another meal for 3 weeks. She's about to endure one of the most extreme weight loss programs on the planet. And it's all because her baby is a glutton. A Weddell seal pup puts on 90 kilograms in only 6 weeks. It needs a thick layer of fat as insulation if it's to survive in the icy water. Eventually, its body will be 50% blubber, and it's all because mom's milk is 60% fat. That's at least 10 times more fat than in cow's milk. It's a truly extreme diet, but strangely enough, one man thought fat could help humans lose weight. For decades, most dietitians have recognized that a fatty diet can cause health problems. However, in the 60s, Polish doctor Jan Kwaśniewski proposed that if you ate lots of energy-rich fat, you'd consume less food and so lose weight. Some Americans are still following the diet today, even though it means eating an awful lot of fatty food. According to Kwaśniewski, a good breakfast consists of a 4-egg omelet cooked in lard, with a side of bacon and sausage and toast swimming in butter. Then, you wash it all down with a cup of heavy whipping cream. And that's just a third of your fat goal for the day. A fat diet may be a cardiologist's nightmare, but a Weddell seal mom would love it. She's starving, because in the 6 weeks before her pup is weaned, she's lost 180 kilograms. It's a truly extreme weight loss program, but this mom can't compete with our next contender. There's a dad in Antarctica that goes without food not for 3 weeks, but 3 months. Our next contender waddles up to 80 kilometers to breed in the coldest place on the planet. These are emperor penguins. Huddled together for warmth, the males will remain on this patch of ice all winter without a single bite of food. They're stuck here because when the female lays an egg, there's nothing to use to build a nest, so Dad uses his feet. He balances the precious egg on top of his toes and covers it with a warm pouch of skin. Now, he's stuck here till it hatches. Mom now starts the long trek back to the sea, leaving the males alone for the duration of the Antarctic winter. They barely move for 65 days, balancing the egg on their toes despite freezing temperatures and blinding storms. And throughout it all, they don't eat a mouthful of food. And while the fathers slowly starve, the females are far away in the open ocean, feasting on fish and krill. The male emperor penguin is number 6 in the countdown, because for more than 120 days, the only thing it has to eat is a little snow to stave off dehydration. But it's costing the penguin energy just to warm up the frozen water. It's been suggested that humans could also use the same trick to lose a little weight. Unfortunately, a diet of snow and ice is of no use to a hungry emperor penguin because it contains 0 calories. But some humans believe that eating a different no-cal food source can be good for your health. In California, Ray Kong is hungry. Ray eats clay. But this is no ordinary clay. While it has no calories, it does contain all kinds of minerals, and it also absorbs toxins we store in our bodies. That's why he has a thriving business selling clay as a dietary supplement, not only for humans, but dogs, fish, horses, and astronauts. It all started in the early 60s when astronauts began extending their space flights from just a few days to several months. When they returned from outer space, the astronauts were suffering from osteoporosis. To prevent this bone loss, astronauts needed to ingest the most absorbable form of calcium available, and they found it in Ray's special clay.
And the key word is absorbable, because if you can't absorb it, that doesn't do you any good. So the astronauts ended up taking it, and then it did the job. I've been eating clay for over 25 years, and some people may think I'm crazy. But when you think about it, when you think of nutrients and think of minerals, it's not that crazy.
Well, you don't have to be crazy to eat clay. You could go insane trying to raise a baby in Antarctica. Even though Dad hasn't eaten for more than 3 months, now there's a hungry mouth to feed. Despite his empty stomach, somehow he manages to produce an oily secretion to nourish the chick. Towards the end of his extreme diet, the male has lost 45% of his body weight. But at last, relief is in sight. Mom's returned, fat, full, and eager to take over the chick rearing. But the male's ordeal isn't over. He still has to walk to the coastline before he can start feeding. It takes so long to get to the sea and back that both parents between them can only manage about 16 meals in the entire 5 months of incubating the egg and raising the chick. But not even the emperor penguin's lonely trek can compete with our next contender. It travels 10,000 kilometers without any food at all. Our last 2 contenders have proved that finding food in a freezer isn't always easy. But coming up is an animal that lives for the thrill of the krill. And later, we'll discover a bug that people love to bite. The next contender in our countdown of extreme dieters has a big mouth and an even bigger appetite. It can swallow 15,000 krill in a single gulp. It takes a lot of crustaceans to feed a 50-ton southern right whale. Each day, it filters 2 tons of krill, using its mouth full of whiskers like a sieve as its huge tongue squeezes out the water. That's about 1,000,000 calories every day, enough to feed 500 people. About a quarter of all this food will be converted straight into blubber, because this whale is desperate to pack on the kilos. By the end of winter, about 20% of its body weight will be pure fat. In a 50-ton whale, that's 25,000 kilograms of blubber, and it's going to need every gram for the epic journey that lies ahead. The southern right whale is number 5 in the countdown because once it leaves its summer feeding grounds, it won't eat a thing for the next 4 months. It travels far from the rich waters around Antarctica to temperate breeding grounds in the north. And blubber is all it has to live on throughout the 10,000-kilometer round trip. The whales must leave the massive swarms of krill far behind because their newborn calves would not survive in the freezing waters of Antarctica. The slowest of all cetaceans, right whales cruise at little more than 6 kilometers an hour as they swim through some of the wildest seas on the planet. But blubbery whales are not the only things that recognize the value of a fatty diet in extreme conditions. In 1999, 3 men completed an arduous 84-day trek on foot across one of the longest, most difficult routes to the South Pole. They crossed an ice shelf the size of France just to reach the trans-Antarctic mountains while hauling a sled weighing as much as 3 adults. And just like a whale, a lot of their energy came from fat. Their dehydrated stew may not look appetizing, especially when it's swimming in
Olive oil.
Olive oil is 100% fat and has twice as many calories as an equal amount of carbohydrates or proteins. And these guys need all the energy they can get. They burn 7,000 calories a day, almost 4 times as much as a normal human diet. But for humans, too much fat can wear a little thin after a while.
A big bowl of stew, once again.
It's times like this that Antarctic explorers begin to wish that they were as fat as a whale. The right whale carries all the food for its journey just under its skin, so it's able to survive without eating for more than 4 months. By the time a female has weaned her calf, she could have lost 40% of her body weight, about 20 tons. But not all animals can wrap themselves in blubber like a whale. Insects are too small to store vast amounts of fat in their body. That's why our next contender has found a different way of surviving a diet that can last for 6 months. Of all the inhabited continents, Australia is the driest. In the arid outback, you may have to go without fresh food for months. That's why this ant colony stores its energy reserves deep underground, in the strangest pantry on the planet. These golden orbs are full of food, and they're alive. These are honeypot ants. They're filled with so much fluid that it stretched the membranes between their abdominal segments. When it rains, the colony feeds some of their workers with water, nectar, and fat. These massively swollen individuals hang helplessly from the roof of the nest chamber. When the rains disappear and food becomes scarce, the ant colony relies on these individuals just as the whale relies on its blubber. By feeding on this living pantry, the ant colony can survive a 6-month drought. Honeypot ants may have mastered the art of food storage millions of years ago, but it took until 1810 before Londoner Peter Durand came up with a similar idea.
Jeremy, can you make a tin canister?
A what, sir?
Like this tea canister, only of tin metal.
Well, it's never been done before, as far as I know, sir. There's always a first time for everything.
And that's how we discovered canned food.
By Jove, I think we've hit it.
Unfortunately, it took another 50 years to invent the can opener. No wonder some people got a little frustrated trying to open these little suits of armor. In the outback, there's no need for a can opener, so long as you know where to look for nature's very own tin cans. For the Aborigines of Central Australia, honeypot ants are a highly valued food. The convenient little packages of concentrated nutrients can help both humans and ants to survive in the desert. Wouldn't it be interesting if humans were more like these ants? Then you'd never have to go on a diet again, because you could simply store all your fat in somebody else's body. It doesn't matter if you're as small as an ant or as big as a whale, dieting can be difficult. But would you take a diet pill if it contains something so disgusting that you'd lose not only weight, but your lunch? And later, we'll discover that being weightless in space may mean eating a lot. We're planning a voyage to Mars. It'll be a 3-year round trip, so our astronauts will either have to take an awful lot of food with them, or take a tip from the next contender in our countdown of extreme dieters. The grizzly bear would make a great astronaut, because it can go for 7 months without food. Of course, you can't starve for all that time without some rigorous preparation. That's why, in the summer, grizzlies pack away 65,000 calories per day. Thanks to a diet of energy-rich salmon, the bear can gain about 13 kilograms every week, and 80% of that is pure fat. This massive energy reserve is needed if the bear is to survive the long, cold winter. For 7 months, it doesn't eat, drink, or go to the toilet. However, a hibernating bear can still wake up, which is why these wildlife officers are taking no chances approaching the den. Some scientists want to take a closer look at the bear's remarkable metabolism. They're hoping to discover secrets that will help humans wishing to sleep, not through the winter, but through the long flight to Mars. New research has revealed that the bears inside this den are not the only animals to have the genes for hibernation. All mammals, including humans, have 2 genes that are responsible for the production of enzymes vital to the hibernation process. However, Only a few animals like bears, hedgehogs, and squirrels switch on the genes to sleep away the winter. Imagine if we could activate those genes and hibernate like a bear. First, we'd have to stuff ourselves with food to prepare for the big sleep. We'd need all the fat we could get, because during hibernation, a bear can lose up to 30% of its body weight. If we slept like a bear, we'd conserve energy by slowing our heart rate to 8 beats per minute. And we'd take one breath every 45 seconds. Then, after 7 months, we'd wake up slim, trim, and very hungry. So maybe sometime in the future, when scientists work out how to activate those hibernation genes, perhaps incredibly fat astronauts will be sleeping their way to the stars.
To come out of a state of hibernation is an eerie sensation. I didn't know who or where I was until I heard Al's voice.
Hi there, spaceman.
While the bear may help us make the leap from science fiction to science fact, it couldn't survive its long sleep without the help of our next contender. It's an animal that can survive even longer without food, so long as it doesn't get eaten by a bear. Summer in the American Northwest is lush and plentiful. Hardly a place where you'd expect to find an extreme dieter. But our next contender can go for 9 months without a single bite of food, because the only thing on its mind is reproduction. These Pacific salmon are heading home. It can be 1,100 kilometers upstream to their spawning ground, and they swim there on an empty stomach. They don't eat because there's little food for them in the freshwater streams, and eventually their digestive system will just shut down. But jumping waterfalls requires a huge amount of energy. That's why salmon keep a ready supply of sugars within their body. That's very different to humans. When we stop eating, sugars are the first things to disappear. Salmon, however, need to maintain a reserve of this high-energy fuel because sugars power the muscles in the frantic swimming needed to clear all kinds of obstacles. As the weeks go by, the salmon's massive effort starts to show. They've lost up to 30% of their body weight, and just like their digestive system, their immune system has shut down, so they're vulnerable to attack by diseases and parasites. Strangely enough, parasites have not always been so unwelcome. Back in the 1920s, all trendy young women wanted to be rail-thin flappers. However, not everyone was naturally skinny, so some women went looking for extreme ways of losing weight. If you didn't want to bother with exercise or fancy diets, you could just take a miracle pill. There's nothing like swallowing tapeworm eggs to help you lose weight. Once the parasite hatches, it feeds on nutrients inside your intestines. Women did claim to get thinner. The only drawback was they could end up with a 6-meter-long parasite inside their body. Imagine sharing your lunch with this. But a tapeworm wouldn't find anything to eat in a salmon's intestine. More than 9 months after their last meal, the salmon spawn and die, weakened by stress, starvation, and infection. However, as their bodies decay, they release nutrients into the water, enriching the spawning area. This will eventually help their offspring when they emerge looking for their first meal. It's a tragic end, but perhaps not surprising given that the fish has spent so long on such an extreme diet. But the salmon is still a glutton compared to our final contender. We've seen the 9 contenders. They've survived nature's toughest weight loss programs. Only one animal is a more extreme dieting machine. Lurking in these woods is the most extreme dieter in the countdown, and it's looking for us. It's a bloodsucker that's been waiting years for a meal. Crawling in to number 1 in the countdown is the tick. These creepy crawlies can go for more than a decade between meals. So when they get a chance to eat, they really pig out. A tick can drink 600 times its own weight in blood. It secretes a glue around its mouth parts because its body gets so swollen that it can no longer cling to its host with its legs. Once it's finished feeding, it molts and then starts waiting for another victim to pass. The tick is number 1 in the countdown because some species have been recorded waiting 18 years between meals. The tick survives this extreme diet by shutting down its metabolism so that it burns very little energy as it patiently waits for another mammal to brush past. No human could survive such an extreme diet. Every day, 79% of the calories you eat are used to run your vital organs like the heart, lungs, digestive tract, and brain. If you stop eating, the body can survive for a few days by burning up calories and fat reserves. Then your body starts breaking down protein in your muscles and vital organs for energy. You literally eat yourself alive. And once all available protein is used up, you die. However, there are the odd few who think that you don't have to eat. You can survive on the energy of an all-pervading universal force in the air around us. These people are called breatharians. One follower is Camilla Lesnov. She claims to have gone 63 days without food, except for fish stock tea with a dash of vinegar.
I am nourished by prana, as old Eastern religion did believe that there is a prana in the air or chi energy or something like that. I know that I am nourished, and I am nourished probably very, very well, much better than I was nourishing myself.
Current scientific theories about nutrition warn that if you stop eating, you'll starve to death. However, scientists have recently discovered that if you eat a little less, you may live longer. It seems that if you reduce the number of calories fed to mice by 40%, they'll live twice as long as their well-nourished siblings. Eating less slows down the metabolism and the body produces fewer free radicals. These are an aggressive form of the oxygen molecule and are thought to be a factor in the aging process. If eating less means you may live longer, it's no wonder the tick can survive for 18 years. Very few free radicals will emerge if you don't eat anything at all. That's why the tick can afford to sit and wait for a meal to pass by. All it needs is a sniff of carbon dioxide to snap the tick out of its suspended animation and send it in search of the meal that will end its extreme diet. And that's why, when it comes to dieting, the tick really is the most extreme.